Conversations on the Rocks, the podcast where the drink is strong and the stories are stronger. I'm your host, Kristen Dokas, and this isn't your average chat fest. Here, real people spill the tea alongside their favorite drinks, from the hilarious to the heart-wrenching. Each episode, a wild card. You'll laugh, you may cry, but you'll definitely learn something new. So grab whatever wets your whistle and buckle up. It's time to dive into the raw, the real, and the ridiculously human. Let's get this chat party started. Everybody, it's Kristen Dokas, and it is another episode of Conversations on the Rocks, the conversation and podcast that is as random as I can be on any given Sunday. And today I am so excited because I have Jason Falls in the house. And if you're not in the social media world, you may not know who Jason Falls is, but let me tell you, he is a god amongst humans. And I told you it gets deep around here.
That's a little too much, but okay.
You are. So I'm going to let Jason give you a little tutorial on himself. But let me just tell you, this man, he likes bourbon, barbecue, and many other things. And so, Jason, please tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Okay. As you might imagine with the bourbon and barbecue references, I hail from the great state of Kentucky. I grew up in eastern Kentucky. I'm a hillbilly, a redneck by birthright and everything else. But I am primarily a social media strategist, a digital marketing strategist. My primary areas of focus for businesses and brands are influencer marketing strategy and implementation. And then I also do a fair amount of social listening and social intelligence gathering for clients, monitoring conversations online to help inform their product teams, their content, things like that. Those are the two primary things I do. But I came to the social media marketing world in the mid-2000s when brands were first starting to really pay attention to social media marketing, and I just happened to be in the right place at the right time and had a couple of cool ideas and a couple of cool brands that were clients at the time of the agency that I was working for, and it kind of put me in a unique position to be kind of out in front of the social media marketing wave as it crashed ashore, I guess. And so I've been speaking at conferences. I've written 3 books. I've had a couple of different types of podcasts over the years, and just talking about the world of digital, social media, and influencer marketing, and helping clients figure all that out.
That's not why we're here today. We are here today because Jason's podcast, Roots Music Rambler, he is an aficionado of Americana music. And in addition to the fact that I just love spending time with you, talking about influencer marketing and all of that stuff, I really love listening to your reviews on music. Jason is on TikTok. He does, and other places, but I typically spend more time on TikTok, and that's where I come across more of your content when it comes to music. But last weekend, within the past 2 weeks, you put up a post about Queen Beyonce's newest album, Cowboy Carter. And so what we're going to kind of do is talk a little bit, we're going to nerd out a little bit on the social listening piece of it, but then we're also going to talk about music, and then we're just going to really combine it all to come up to the conclusion of mind your own business. And if you don't like something, just keep scrolling.
I like it.
Right?
Okay.
So, we can go and delve into this, but, you and I both have been in the social media realm for many, many years. I think I pegged 15 years for myself. And it's so different now. And, remember back in the day when it used to be fun? It used to be puppies and kittens and here's what I'm eating. And that was so annoying to us back then in the day. But would you not give your left arm to see your feed full of nothing more than puppies, kittens, and what people are eating for lunch?
Oh, any day. I cherish the days when, you're right, it was puppies and kittens and the double rainbow, triple rainbow videos, and the the acid trip in the closet video on YouTube was passed around for forever, and just fun, silly stuff. And most of us in those days, in 06, 07, around in there, we were on Twitter. And that was when Twitter was real people having real conversations and not just people blasting crap out that doesn't make
Which
any
is probably
sense.
how you and I first originally connected, because that's how I originally connected to Mark Schaefer, was on Twitter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So made a lot of friendships, a lot of relationships started that way. I probably, had a few hundred friends prior to the advent of social media, and instantly had several thousand friends, in the matter of a few months, just because we were on there. People, like-minded folks talking about, most of my crowd was talking about marketing and social media marketing and PR and bloggers and things like that. But then there were also offshoots talking about sports and music and other things too. And the internet back then was less political. It was certainly less divisive. But I think that's true of our whole world. I think the last 15, 20 years, we have, snowballed into this cacophony of noise and hatred and skepticism and conspiracy theories and volatility. And it's, we're in a rubbernecking society, and it seems like every day whoever's trying to make news, they have to do something worse than what happened the day before to get anybody's attention. And so it's just this never ending cycle.
It's a cesspool of humanity. And I think you're being very generous with 15 to 20 years. I think it's really been the past 4 years. I really think COVID is what did us in. And because people were stuck in their house, they had nothing more to do. Think about it. That's when TikTok really exploded, was during shelter in place.
Yeah, but I would also say that pre-COVID, probably from 17 or 18 on, that's when Twitter started to fall apart. It was before Elon. It got bad before him. And, there were, for several years there, we were all worried about these pockets of skinhead communities and things like that popping up on YouTube. So I think there were some warning signs then that told us that this was coming. And the pandemic certainly just poured gas on the fire, because nobody else had anything to do other than sit at home and come up with, BS to put on the internet. And then, of course, at least in the United States, well, I guess the United States and the United Kingdom, at that same general time, we were having this great political upheaval,
right?
In our leadership, which, polarized the country even more. And social media was naturally the place where people went to spew hate against each other.
So going back to where we started, tangent, do you want to fill everybody in on the post of which I'm referencing?
Yeah, sure. So I do to support Roots Music Rambler, which is a bi-weekly music podcast. On TikTok and Instagram, I post 60-second album reviews. I listen to a ton of music, and I make it a point to listen to new albums, particularly in the Americana, country, roots, bluegrass, folk music world. And so I post these a couple a week, normally 60-second album reviews, to just let people know, hey, I listened to this new album, and my rules are I have to listen to the whole album. It's not just one song. I listen to the whole thing. I assess it for how I like it, and normally my scorecard is how many songs from this album did I put on my Americana playlist on Spotify. And if it's more than a couple, it's a pretty good album. If it's more than probably 4, it's a great album. And so I do these reviews to just help people discover new music more than anything else. And of course, when Cowboy Carter from Beyonce came out, there's a lot of preliminary controversy and vitriol about the album from people who hadn't heard it because they'd only heard the one song, Texas Hold'em. And there's people who just philosophically were saying there's no way that a pop artist like Beyonce can make a country album. She's not a country artist. She doesn't know country. She's not blah, blah, blah. And then there were some people who were like, yeah, but she's Queen Bey and she's awesome and she's going to pull this off. And so there's all this debate and discussion, which I find, repulsive almost, because an artist is an artist, and please judge the work, not what you think the work is going to be. But nonetheless, and you have to remember too, I am from a very rural part of Kentucky in the mountains. It's a very red part of our state. We have a couple of little blue dots from a political standpoint, but it's a very red part of our state. And yes, I am from the place where the Hatfields and McCoys had their feud. So I have a lot of friends on Facebook. I have a lot of family members and whatnot who probably leaned to that. There's no way this is going to be good sort of predisposition on this album. So when I did the review, I wanted to recognize people who had listened to it, had heard it, and didn't like it. And I wanted to also kind of mute, and not really censor, but just kind of put a hand up and say, hey, if you're going to hate on this without giving it full credit or even listening to the whole album, your opinion doesn't matter. But I needed to do it in a polite way because these are people I grew up with. You know, I'm going to have to walk down the street and see them at some point. And so basically my review was, first of all, my personal opinion without thinking about anybody else's opinion. I absolutely loved the album because I love more than anything artists who blur genres. I love it when a bluegrass band does a rock song in a bluegrass version. I love that kind of cross-genre stuff. So what Beyonce did here is she took her, Queen Bey status from the pop and R&B and hip-hop and rock world and soul and put a country filter over it and came out with something that wasn't true country, but it was very countryfied, and it really blended the genres into something I thought elevated it. It was new. It sounded great. The songs were good. The lyrics were good. They were when I first heard Texas Hold'em, the first words out of my mouth was, "That's catchy." Like that's going to catch on. People are going to be humming and singing that, and that's what she does. She's good at that. Very good at it. And so, but when I listened to the whole album, there are 6 or 8 cuts on that thing that I just thought were great songs. I didn't care what genre you put them in. They were great songs. And the fact that she took the genre of country and what she grew up listening to and in that world and the influences that she had in that world and produced something new, I think it elevated the genre. It's not a true country album, but it is very much a country album, and it is very much influenced by country, but it blends all these other things in it to make it something new and different. I think she really elevated the genre and created something that we haven't heard before. And so when
I was gonna say, it's interesting to me, these same people that were saying these things, and I've seen it all over my feed as well, is Keith Urban is not American, and y'all love him. You love some Keith Urban. He's Australian.
That's true. That's very true. Well, and I would argue that 90% of the country radio hits from the last 15 years are pop songs with a banjo in the background. I mean, they're not real
absolutely
country.
Not.
If you want real country, you need to go back to the 60s and 70s and listen to Loretta and listen to Conway, and that's 100%. Real country. When you get to the late 90s into
Garth Brooks,
or actually the late 80s into the 90s and 2000s, when the Garths came around, and you had some still good tried and true country folks like George Strait in there, but that sort of, when country went mass, which had a lot to do with the radio consolidation, the big radio conglomerates consolidating. When country went mass, it became bro country, pop country, and it really diverted away from true country music. Now, I will say, and this is kind of an allusion to kind of what I did with the Beyonce thing, I don't think we can discount bro country or pop country because a lot of people like it. And that doesn't mean it's not country. It doesn't mean it's not pop. It doesn't mean it's not valid. Plenty of those songs. I mean, if you look at, I think there are 11 country music songs who are certified diamond, which means they've sold 10 million or more albums. And I think out of the 11, like 7 of them are what I would call bro country, pop country songs. Right? So a lot of people like this music. Let's not discount them. And the people who say Beyonce's album is not a country album, at least the ones who have listened to it, I don't discount that opinion. I don't think it's a country album the way we think of country albums, but I think it's a new version of a country album that steps the genre up, broadens it a little bit, and brings in other influences to make it richer and better.
And she's an artist. And the beautiful thing about artists
Mm-hmm.
is they take things and they make it their own, right? I have a big issue. We're going to flip over to the other mega star, which is Taylor Swift, right? And, now that she's dating, Travis Kelce, all of these Brads, Chads, and Dads were having a freaking heart attack over it, right? It's like, here's my big issue with this, and I'm on the Taylor thing right now, is as Americans, I'm just going to say it, you have been, the collective you, have been wanting to have something pure. You've been wanting to have something that is like Girl Next Door. Like, you cannot give me a more perfect Boy Meets Girl Next Door than Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift. And you still are going to bitch about it. I mean, I was having, it's like, oh my God, I don't want to see, it's like, it is not, the NFL is smart. They know where their money ticket is, right? And that's Taylor Swift showing up at Kansas City Chief games. So you can bitch about Taylor all you want to. There were so many times that she got caught on saying, stop filming me. She did not want the attention. She wanted the attention where it needed to be, which was on the football field. And all these Brads, Chads, and Dads are going, and I'm like, dude, talk to the camera guy, because that's the one who's at fault, and talk to the NFL. And I've had this conversation with other men. They're like, well, what's going to happen next year if they're not together? I'm like, well, then they're being very, very smart for cashing in when they can. It's
Absolutely.
just, but going beyond the dating piece of it, her, and I'm not a Swiftie. I like her. I respect her as a businesswoman. Folklore. When she did Folklore, Folklore is a very, totally different than her little pop princess that everybody wants to throw her into. But she and Beyonce both have done extremely amazing jobs at taking on a different type of music and genre than what they are known for.
Yeah. Well, and you got to remember, and I am well informed here. My 16-year-old daughter is a major Swiftie. So you got to remember, Taylor Swift started out as a country artist. She started out as a singer-songwriter. The fact that she was 13 when she started, writing songs and performing, and had the drive and the, ambition to do what she's done, it put her in a position to attract a certain demographic, young girls. And she has cultivated that audience into this massive demographic buying set that loves her music, loves everything about her.
Don't you dare come for Taylor when there's a Swiftie around.
Oh, no. And it spans, because you got to remember, she's early to mid 30s now. So she's been doing this for 20 years. So she's got 2.5 generations of people who are in her fan base. I mean, I know 40-something-year-old women who would die for Taylor Swift, and my 16-year-old daughter would do the same, and there's even younger girls that way. So in terms of business and marketing and building an audience, she's second to none. But when you really get into the conversations about Taylor Swift, and you can like her music or you can not like her music, it doesn't matter. When you ask songwriters who the best songwriter living today is, Taylor's in the top 5 of most of their list. When Jason Isbell, who I consider probably the best living songwriter right now, when Jason Isbell was asked that question on a podcast just a few months ago, who's the best living songwriter right now, he said Taylor Swift. He said she's fantastic. And she is. And I think the problem that the Brads, Dads, and Chads have with Taylor Swift is just oversaturation. She's been everywhere for 15, 20 years, and they can't get away from her. And their daughters play the music all the time. So the one respite they probably have from Taylor Swift is watching NFL games on Sunday, and now they got to see cutaways to her in the press box. They'll get over it. It's fine. She's not hurting anybody.
And some of the best things that I saw on social media regarding all of that are the dads that were grateful for it. They're like, I've never been able to get my daughter to sit down and watch a football. And I remember one TikTok or one statement that this dad was like, he goes, now not only is she watching the game with me, she's learning it and she loves it. And he's like,
Yeah.
I there's no way I could have ever had that happen. And I think, if people would just stop judging and, what's right for you is not right for me. What's right for me is not right for you. And you know what? That's okay. And it's just gotten so out of control. And that's a whole different bucket of.
Well, and to circle back, right, my whole point with my review of the Beyonce album that I wanted to make was, look, if you don't like it, that's okay. You don't have to like it. You don't have to listen to it. You don't have to buy it. And if you see something in your stream, you can thumb scroll past it. It's fine. But don't shit on it for everybody else. Let us enjoy it. We like it. It's fine. I'm not crapping on your choices. I'm not going to sit here and tell you Morgan Wallen sucks and he's racist and you shouldn't listen to it. If you want to listen to Morgan Wallen, go listen to Morgan Wallen. I don't care. I'm not gonna. He's not my style. I don't like his stuff. If he comes out with a song I do like any other artist, I'm probably going to listen to it. That's fine. But you go listen to whatever you want to listen to, Morgan Wallen or otherwise. Let us have our Beyonce country album because we freaking like it. I think it's fantastic.
So here's a personal story. My youngest daughter we moved her out to Idaho last summer, right? And she's a typical youngest child in the fact that, she just, her sisters are always like, eh. So my oldest says, so who's because we drove, right? And she's like, so whose music are you going to be listening to? And I'm like, I don't know. It's Cassie's car. It's Cassie's trip. Probably Cassie's. And she's like, oh, good luck with that. Well, I'm not going to go into that like that. And so that's an 18 hours of driving, right? So, split over however many days we did it, but solid driving. And we listened to Cassie's playlist. It was one of the best playlists because she's a little bit more into alternative. And I had nobody come at me for this one. I wasn't familiar with Zach Bryan. And I was like, holy I love this guy. And so I told her, I was like, hey, can Cassie, will you share? So she has like a Spotify playlist that's like, I don't know, 28 hours long. And I'm like, will you share that with me? So the funny thing is the oldest one who was poo-pooing on said sister's playlist came up just out of the blue one day, goes, oh my God, y'all, I like country. I like Zach Bryan. And I was like, I told you. And I said, here's the thing. You would have really liked Cassie's playlist. And so a few days later, she's like, Cassie, will you share it? And then she's like coming back a couple of days. She's like, oh, I really like this. So the moral of the story is stop prejudging because until you actually listen to it, you don't know what you're going to like. And why is it such a bad thing for all of us to explore other types of music? I mean, it was more than Zach Bryan. There were a ton of artists on there. Now, did I like them all? No. I'm here to tell you, I'm not a fan of Mac Miller, and I'm not allowed to say that around my kids because they love Mac Miller and he's dead. And I'm like, he's just not my thing. You know what I do? Exactly. You know what I do? I go, Alex, which is what I call Alexa, so she doesn't go off every time. Alex, skip. How hard is that?
There you go. That's not hard at all. Not hard at all. I have a similar story. It's a little bit kind of turned around. I took my kids to see my dad in Virginia last summer, and not nearly an 18-hour drive, more like 4.5.
Much more reasonable.
Maybe a little bit more than that. But anyway, my son, about halfway through the trip, said, "Hey, Dad, can I control the music?" Because I had just put on something general that my kids would tolerate on my playlist. And I said, sure. So he unplugs my phone from the USB port and plugs his in. And I'm like, okay, I'm getting ready to listen to a bunch of Jack Harlow or some other type of rap music. So I had this predetermined, idea of what he was going to play. And he pushed his play and I almost swerved off the road. He started playing Steely Dan.
Yes.
And I was like, where did you learn Steely Dan? And he's a big music fan, and he's going to college to study to be an audio engineer. and he's been exploring a bunch of different genres and a bunch of different artists, and he turns on Steely Dan, and the rest of the trip was fantastic because he was listening to music that I really dig. So,
man,
blew me
let
away.
me tell you,
It was
Steely
nice.
Dan, that's some good stuff. And like, I mean, you think about it, like the 70s stuff, and, you know, I think we're about the same age. You may be a little bit younger than me, but, you know, kicking back to those 70s with like the Doobie Brothers and Eagles. And I really miss that big band, not big band, but big horns, the horns, like with,
horn sections,
like the Commodores and all of those.
Yeah,
Chicago, definitely some old school Chicago.
Yeah, old Chicago, not Peter Cetera
Not.
Chicago. It was when Peter Cetera started singing. They kind of got when David Foster started producing them. They got kind of
25 or
and
624. Still one of my absolutely. And I can still. So
Yep.
what are we're coming in on about? We got about 5 minutes left. I want to talk about two more things with you. I want to talk about we want to talk about some bourbon because you know your girl loves some bourbon. And I want to like give me off the top of your head like what are your top 5 albums right now beyond Cowboy Carter? And are you gonna listen to Taylor's new album, which comes out on the 19th, which is Friday?
It's Friday, and it's also my daughter's
oh my gosh!
Birthday.
So yeah,
you can guarantee I'm going to be listening to that thing over and over again. So, and I would listen to it anyway just to hear it, but the fact that I have a Swiftie daughter means I'm going to listen to it ad infinitum, which is fine. So bourbon, so I'll just throw this out about bourbon. The bourbon explosion is still on the uptick. There's just dozens of new brands coming out every month. If you have the opportunity, I would recommend if you're going to a bourbon bar or looking for something new, there's a bourbon out of Owensboro, Kentucky called Green River Bourbon. And Green River Distillery, and I've tried it a few times now, and every time I've tried it, I've liked it a little bit more. It's growing on me. So Green River is a good recommendation for you. Most of your mainstream bourbons that everybody's heard about, Bullet, Maker's Mark, whatnot, they're all going to be perfectly fine to mix in cocktails and whatnot. But if you like just sipping on a new bourbon and trying to find something new, I think Green River would be a good choice for you. And if you haven't had the opportunity to explore the Willet bourbons yet, do that because they're pretty tasty. And then albums, top 5 albums. I love this, and I'm more prepared to answer this question now than I ever have been before. I will tell you this. If you have not heard of or have listened to Joy Aladakun, she has an album out called Proof of Life, I think. She has collaborations, duets on that album with Chris Stapleton, I think Noah Kahn.
There's
maybe,
he's another one that I discovered this summer.
Yep.
Love him.
Yep. So Joy Aladakun, Proof of Life is the album. I listened to the whole album, and my immediate reaction when I turned to someone and said, this is how I would describe Joy Aladakun, it's like Tracy Chapman in a good mood. It's uplifting. I mean, there's some really thick lyrics and issues that she talks about, but she has this light, joyous sound. And it's just one that I can put on and I just feel good listening to it. So that's one. My second choice right now, and these are in no particular order, but they're the top 5 that I'm listening to right now. Brent Cobb, Southern Star. Brent Cobb, Southern Star. Brent Cobb has been around for a little while, but this is his first, what I would consider almost a breakthrough album. He's got an interesting sound. It's country, but he's got a couple songs out there that have like this kind of funk bassline vibe, and he's just got some really good songs. He is the cousin, by the way, of Dave Cobb, who is the famous Nashville producer who's produced Chris Stapleton and Jason Isbell and all sorts of other people. But Brent Cobb, Southern Star. Sierra Farrell has a new album out now that is called, I think, Trail of Flowers. And she is kind of a fiddle player from West Virginia who was basically poor, ran away from the state because she knew if she stuck around, she was probably going to fall into a meth pit. And she just traveled around and has kind of hit it as an artist. And the album is not only beautiful from a beautiful from a music standpoint, but even the cover art is just, I want to frame it and put it on the wall. So Sierra Farrell, I think it's called Trail of Flowers. That's number 3. Number 4 is going to be, it can't be Cowboy Carter. Okay, hold on.
No, it can be Cowboy Carter.
Let me think. Oh, the new one from Marcus King, and I'll come up with the name of it here. Mood Swings is the name of the album, produced by Rick Rubin. Several of the songs were recorded at Shangri-La, Rick Rubin's studio out in Malibu, and Marcus King is a great kind of Southern blues rock guitarist. His previous albums are fantastic too, but this one with the Rubin touch it's just great. It's got a bunch of really good songs on it. So Marcus King's new one is excellent. And then, okay, I want to hit you one. I just posted this 60-second album review today or yesterday. No, today, the day we're recording this. It is called Old School, and it is by Kimmy Bitter. Kimmi Bitter. This young lady is a singer-songwriter from San Diego, California. This is her first major album. She's had a few singles on Spotify before this. The album debuted at number 1 on the alt country charts last week, out of nowhere. She basically is Patsy Cline and Loretta Lynn in 2024. She plays old school country music the way we remember country music. Really good Patsy Cline type ballads, really good Loretta Lynn, like Don't Mess With Me anthems. She wears, go-go boots and a go-go outfit and plays it up. The whole art direction and everything is all 60s, 70s old school country, and she sounds magnificent. Lovely. The only thing I didn't like about the album was she mispronounced Appalachia, but I can forgive her because she's from California.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I love Lainey Wilson. She's just she's country. She's not just, she's country, as we say here in North Carolina. She's country. Yeah. She's country. She's country. I love the list. I wrote them down. I'm going to put them in the show notes. Here's one for you. Another one I discovered last summer. Are you familiar with the band called the 502s?
No.
Check them out. Talk about happy.
The 502s.
Yeah. Such a great band. They're a happy band. They're if you're kind of like, I got to clean the house or I got to mow the yard, and you put them on, you're like, oh yeah, this is not so bad after all. Great band. The 502s.
I'm going to be, they're from Maitland, Florida. I was going to say 502 is the area code for Louisville. So I was going to be real disappointed if they were from Louisville and I hadn't heard of them, but they're not.
So, but they've got a lot of the horns and the brass in there too. Do you remember the squirrel nut zippers?
Dig it.
So
yeah.
So
I know what you're talking about.
But you know how the squirrel nut zippers were just a very fun, but same thing with the 502s. Jason Falls, my friend. This has been such a great conversation. How it's already been 35 minutes, I don't know. But we have so much fun when we talk to each other, and I really do appreciate you being privy to my reboot of my pod fade from 4 years ago. But hey. Life happens, right? And here's the final rule, not rule, but like the final word is, if you don't like something, just keep scrolling. Nobody needs your negative. We don't care. And, stop being so close-minded and live a happier life. So, Jason,
there you go.
Thank you. And all my friends out there, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this time with Jason. And till next time, hopefully your life is great. As the saying goes, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. And that's a wrap for this week's episode. A big thanks to my guests for sharing their story and to you for listening. Don't forget to share the show with your friends and spread the words. And if you'd like to be a guest on the show, the link is in the show notes. Till next time, cheers.